Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Daryl Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi, everybody. This is Daryl Scott. You are about to hear the Jazz Flyte Podcast. Our guest, early in life, I heard this thing called multitasking. I wasn't sure. Then I found out a couple of things, and then I thought I was a multitasker until I met a guy like this. This is David Garfield. I'm not sure exactly where to begin. He's a musician, he's a composer, he's an engineer, he's a record label owner. He does an awful lot of things. One of the things I have a problem with is I want to teach everybody how to multitask and how to manage their time. And I figure this guy is going to be the perfect example of what goes on and how to do it and how much sleep he gets during the course of the evening. David, welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Not a problem. This is in reading your bio and stuff, there's so much, and we're going to try to touch on at least a few of those things in this episode. My first question is, how did you get started in this music business?
Well, that's very simple. When I was a kid growing up in the Midwest in the late 50s, early 60s, we had a hi-fi box in the living room, and we had a grand piano in the living room. And there was a lot of music going on. My sister played the piano. My dad and mom loved good music, and it was just what was in the environment. So I took right to it.
Excellent. And how did the keyboards reach out and touch you, so to speak, so that you could become a good player?
Well, we all had piano lessons. We had the piano, which my grandmother bought. It's now in the next room over
Oh,
here. And so I started piano lessons in second grade, age 7, and I was doing pretty well. And then we moved a year later to New Jersey, and I went to a different piano teacher, and he was okay. We worked out, and then he left, and I got another guy, and I didn't like him at all, and I got very discouraged, and I quit piano lessons, yeah, while I was in elementary school. But during that time, excuse me, during that time, I had taken up the drums because you had to pick up an instrument for the school band, and they didn't have piano, so I went to drums, and they give you a rhythm test because everybody wanted to play drums, everyone wanted to bang on things, and the little boys, and they said, no, you got to pass a rhythm test. So that they gave me the little rhythm test where they go like, and then you go, they go, okay. So I became the percussionist in the band, and so when I stopped piano, drums became my main thing. But I always played the piano, I always heard the notes and the chords, was interested in, and so went through a whole phase of being the drummer and went through the whole rock and roll thing in the 60s and then moved back to St. Louis where I'd been before and ended up getting interested in the high school jazz band and then eventually got more and more and more into the piano. And the way my career started, I was a senior in high school, very interested in jazz, learning all this stuff on the piano, playing. I had a friend who played trumpet, and I was always accompanying him when we were into the jazz stuff and played in stage band. And I met guys from the inner city who were working and making money in clubs, and I wanted to play drums with them. And they kept saying, well, we have a drummer, but they said, if you could get an electric piano, because they heard me play the piano, if you get an electric piano, you start working with us. A couple of weeks of that went by, and I finally said, I'm missing out. I said, I'm going to sell my drum set and get electric piano. That Friday I started working, and I have not stopped since.
Well, here's the thing that I always get. I wonder about things. I am not a musician at all. I can't play. I can barely play what chopsticks.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, especially in your case, starting at a young age, where does the manual dexterity come in? Because I know there's certain things I can do. I can rub my stomach and pat my head, and that's I can throw a basketball and not look and all that sort of stuff. But that's when I was older. How did you learn, especially with the piano, your fingers are doing a bunch of different things when you're playing drums. Your left hand's doing one thing, your right hand's doing another, and your feet are doing something totally different.
Right.
Um, so explain that process to me.
Well, fortunately, since I did have those lessons at 7, I learned some very basic, got a little bit of connection to the keyboard. And since the piano was in our living room, I'd always go play on it. I always go fool around on it. But in the rock music that I grew up with, I loved Top 40 radio when we were in New Jersey. You had a mix of music on Top 40. It wasn't like now where they try to genreize things. I
Right.
remember hearing Jefferson Airplane, Frank Sinatra, and then Cannonball Adderley all on
Back to
Top
back.
40. And my ears, I have a good ear. I have what they call absolute pitch. My ear is very trained. I'm very into the sound of the notes and everything. And so I just, would play, and you typically will bang out a chord with one hand and improvise with the right hand. So, I mean, it was later in my career, actually, after I had been on tour with Freddie Hubbard for a year and a half, that I went and sought out a teacher to develop more skills. And I got a great teacher here in LA, Terry Trotter, who was one of the great piano players in town. And he really, I went to have a lesson with him, and I was about 22, and I'd been with Freddie. I'd recorded. I'd already played Carnegie Hall and stuff. And I go in there like I'm this, and he just cut me down. He and built me back up. And but I practice every day. I mean, it's a man, you need to move your fingers, especially as you get in, like me, into my older age. You don't want the things to start freezing up. So in fact, last night I went to see Ron Carter at the local club, and we were talking afterwards. And somebody was talking about Chick Corea. Used to practice 5 hours after the gig. Like,
Uh,
wow.
uh, I have a friend, a local guy here in town who plays bass. He's actually giving it up because his he said he just can't take the pain in his fingers anymore. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I got no suggestions.
Is it
Uh,
upright bass? Or the
he plays a little upright, but he also plays a lot of electric.
Because a upright bass is a finger killer, man. You got to have
Yeah.
some big fat calluses.
I always wonder about, do you have fingerprints? Do you, or have you like ripped them all off from playing?
I
Uh,
don't know, man. It's like, but I just love music. We were talking about this a lot yesterday because actually I went to a memorial for a friend who passed, who was a guitarist. That's right. He was with Chick Corea's electric band, so they were talking about Chick there. And then I went down to see Ron Carter's group, and it's just, I run into people. There was a friend of mine named Billy Childs. He's a wonderful
hmm
pianist sitting across. And Miles Davis's nephew, who's a good buddy of mine, Vince Wilburn, was there. It's a community. It's a blessed community of the music community, creative community, especially here in LA, where I've lived for over 50 years. It's a blessing. I forgot how it's like I'm a fish. It's almost like a fish in the water. I take the water for granted. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. I was talking to somebody, and like yourself, before we got started, I mentioned a name, and you go, "Oh, I know who you should talk to." And this whole referral system kind of kicks in
Hmm.
because you all know each other, you've all played together. And sometimes I go, I just want to be a fly on the wall and just listen to the conversations that you all have. And the when you reminisce about different things, what are you reminiscing about? I'm just I do suggestions. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm not. But I think one, with all the travel that you have done, no matter whether it's United States, Europe, Asia, whatever, create a book, take pictures, and just put them in a table book because you'll remember them. but I think people coming by and seeing you would pick up the book and you're taking the pictures, you do it at your own speed, and
Yeah.
I think it's some cool stuff. I don't necessarily say that you need to write a book, but there are things I'm sure that are interesting stories that we as listeners would love.
Check this out. I got a book coming. It's been planned and it's a long time coming. It's gonna hatch. And what it is, it's 12 by 12. It's a record album is 12 and a half by 12 and a half.
Right,
12 by 12 book. And it's the companion to all the outside the box recordings, which we mentioned. There's six
right.
of them. I have six in the series. I had to cut it off after six. I go, you can't, I'm doing different recordings now. I'm not outside the box, six recordings. And what we've done is I had people at every session, photos, films. I got a journalist to come over and we wrote down all these stories about the recording. I have it all compiled, and we're going to make this book, like you say, it's going to be on a coffee table kind of a thing,
Right.
and it goes along. So if you stream the music, you can see in the same size as a record album who played, you know,
Uh,
stories about the recordings, why we did this song, the history behind it, pictures from the sessions. It's going to happen, but it's slow going.
well, when it gets done, please let me know because I will read it because I've suggested that. So I was talking to Nathan East, and we
Okay,
did a father-son thing. So it's Nathan and Noah. And I go,
right.
I can't remember where he had just come back from. And I said, why don't you do a picture book and just put it on the table? And I kid you not, Noah turned and looked at him and goes, Dad, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's one of those things I think it would be inexpensive to do because you're taking the pictures. You just got put assign pages and it's
yeah,
there. And I
yeah,
just think I can't I can't fly to some place that is central to you all, sit you all in an auditorium for a day, and each one of you have like 12 minutes to come up and tell stories. Because I think to me, I would love that. But
yeah.
you
How
know,
old is Noah now?
Noah's doing he would they just I just saw a video of them playing together for some they're always in Russia and China and stuff like
Really?
that.
Well, how
Um
old is he now? Is he like 20
he's
something?
he's in his 20s. I want to
Okay.
say he's in his early 20s.
Because
Uh
Nathan and I go back. In fact, when I first worked with Nathan, I helped him put his amp in the back of his old Impala, and we bungee cord the trunk over the bass amp, and he was playing with Barry White. And I've never
I,
forget. He was
I just
sharing a house with his brother and another roommate. I mean, I've watched all these cats. This is the beauty of the music community. It's like I go right back to the humble beginnings, like
right.
where we started.
Right. And it's so cool. Let's take a moment to listen to something that you worked on. And it's a matter of fact, it'll be Jazz Outside the Box by Mr. David Garfield on the Jazz Flyte Podcast.
If blood will flow when flesh and steel are one, drying in the color of the evening sun.
I'm Daryl Scott. You're listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. Our guest is David Garfield. David, the one thing that I find also amazing is the fact that you are a musician, you're a composer, you're a session guy, you're a label president, you tour, you tour for yourself, you tour as a sideman. When do you have time? When? When are you home?
I'm home right now.
Well,
It's been an interesting run. I just celebrated last year 50 years in LA and making music, which is really cool because I tended to forget, like we were just talking about Nathan East. I go back further than most of the people that I know. I get out here in 74 and I've watched this whole town and all the people come up and all the different things happen. So I've done a lot of stuff, but it's like it's not all at the same time. Like, there was a periods where I was touring with George Benson as his musical director and take big chunks out of my time, be gone for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. I
Mhm.
stopped doing that in 2018 so I could focus more on my projects, the outside the box project, which we talked about a little bit, which I'll go into detail with you about. But just to address this thing, it sounds like I do so much, but I'm going to shatter your myth. I believe there's no such thing as multitasking
Oh,
because,
okay. Explain that to me.
well, it's the term, it's what do you call it? Semantics. Because
Right,
what I believe is that if I'm talking to you right now, and somebody's texting me over here about something, if I'm over here texting them, I'm not fully present. I believe in being fully present. I get kind of bugged when people are not present. I'm talking to them and they're over here doing,
right,
it's like, hey, hey. So, but I find that I can only focus on one thing properly at a time. But when we talk about multitasking, we talk about wearing a lot of hats. Well,
right.
here's what it boils down to. If you look at my old business, I had business cards. My thing, it says we make music. I make music because literally it's that simple. I write music, I rehearse it, I record it, I perform it. It's just like I'm a chef. I make a meal for you.
Hmm.
Now I'm gonna have to go to the store and pick out the ingredients, and I'm gonna have to do this and maybe, have a good oven or know about ovens or this or that. But to me, I just make music, and I make music both, but see, recording is part of it. When we think back 200 years ago, there was no recording.
No,
So make recording is a part of being a musician. And so performing and recording, like now there's groups like that group Steely Dan for years, they never performed, they just recorded, they were
r-
recording bands.
right.
Later they started discovering performing. I started out as a performer. I didn't know much about studios. I started out in the jazz clubs in St. Louis, and I just love the experience of people playing together and the audience. You feel the audience response, clap after a solo, or if you weren't any good, you didn't get any clap.
Was that shocking to you? Did you? I doubt if it really happened to you. Let's just say that. But when somebody didn't get some kind of recognition, we'll call it, did they go into a shell? Did they try harder the next time?
You used to have to roll because I'll tell you some funny stories. So in the clubs of St. Louis, see, I was so lucky because our St. Louis music heritage, you're in Cleveland, right?
I'm in Cleveland, yes.
So my parents retired up to Cleveland. So I spent a lot of time in Cleveland. I don't know if you knew that I was at Nighttown all the time. And
Oh,
that's where I know Tony from and
right.
Rob Hubbard and the guys at Forecast and all kinds of people. But my parents lived down in University Circle in the retirement building. And I
Hmm.
would go there a lot. But St. Louis is where I learned. And when we go play, there was a club called the Moose Lounge, and Saturday afternoon matinee. And you go in there. I mean, it was like you couldn't even get to play with the band unless you could throw down. So I got up there and played, and I finished my solo, and an audience clap, and then it encourages you. And so now go to Japan. There was all these great stories about jazz groups going to Japan, Miles Davis Quintet, whatever, Max Roach, they play complete silence after the solos.
Wow.
They didn't know what to make of it. It turns out the Japanese were being polite. They
Because
didn't,
they don't clap.
yeah, it's out of respect. Then when the
Right,
song was over,
right,
yeah.
right.
And so now here's a funny one. One time when I was with George Benson, we went to play in Turkish Cyprus, which is not even an official country. It's an occupied portion of Cyprus, which is not recognized by the rest of the world. So we had to actually sneak in there. We couldn't have our passports stamped. We're playing at this casino out, and of course, it's interesting too because the Turks aren't supposed to gamble, but this is like their little Vegas, and we're out by the pool playing with George Benson. And I swear to God, people they didn't know who he was.
Right.
We played "Give Me the Night," crickets. And what you do is you just go, this is a different place. It's a different culture. You'll see that traveling, in different cultures. But I'm very fortunate. Like now, last night when I saw Ron Carter, a wonderful piano player, Donald Vega. I was just the first time I saw him. He teaches at Juilliard. He's a monster, and he did some stuff. They finished, and the place was just. And you feel that energy, and then that's what
Hmm.
I love about live music. That's why I always like playing live.
Man,
But
what's it?
see, arranging, composing, admin, like I have to. After we off this, I'm going to add a date to my website calendar, and I make my own newsletters. But you just learn to wear different hats, and it's out of necessity.
Wow. Now, here, I thought of something while you were talking before. So you've been through the change. Probably when you started, everybody showed up at a studio, eight, nine musicians all in one room, and you're playing and you can see each other.
Yes.
Now in this technology age, which I haven't gotten used to yet, um, somebody sends you a track, you send somebody a track, and you don't have to be in the same room for whatever songs. It, I always thought it was good to see the emotions from the guy playing next to you, whether it
You
be
are
the
correct.
drummer or whatever. Do you feel that's missing now with the technology and everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're hitting the nail on the head. I constantly am raving about this. This is what I mean is the music and the magic comes from people being together. Like we're having an experience now that would not happen if you sent me a list of questions and then I
Right.
sent you a list of answers. When people ask me to do interviews and then they send me a list, a Word document and want me to send, I was like,
No.
no, we could go. And when I had a big record out in Japan, I'd be there all day long. Every hour I'd have in there, I'd be in a coffee shop. They'd come in with a tape recorder. We'd sit there, have coffee, we'd talk, you know, and music. And so this went on this morning. I had a guy in New York, wonderful drummer. He's in the Saturday Night Live band, Sean Pelton. He just did drums on one of the songs I'm doing because I wanted him and he's in New York. So I had to send it to him.
Right.
This morning, early this morning, I was on with him. He's going to make a couple changes. I was going back and forth with him on the phone, the email. Sometimes you have to do it like that, but there's nothing better than being in the same room because you're vibing off of each other.
Right,
You make
exactly.
adjustments.
Oh,
Imagine.
I missed that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and listen to Let's Stay Together. And I think there's a story behind it on the Jazz Flyte Podcast with our guest, David Garfield.
Oh, baby, let's stay together. Loving you, weather, times are good and bad, happy or sad. Ooh, why do people break up?
Let's Stay Together. Michael McDonald on vocals, if
Yes, sir.
I say that and I'm like, who wouldn't recognize that voice? You're listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Daryl Scott. Our guest is David Garfield. Got it right this time.
Yeah.
Um, um, you also have a record label. Pronounce it for me because I don't want to butcher it.
Creatchy.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, it ties into everything we're talking about. When we were young, my best friend Carlos Vega, who was the drummer of my band, Charisma, and he was also my connection to the whole Picaro family.
Mhm.
Um, Carlos called me the Creature. That was his nick. Carlos used to make these nicknames for everybody. It was kind of like borderline, putting you down, like a caricature.
Right.
I was when I first got out here, when I came out from St. Louis, I was 18 years old, and I came no college. I mean, I lived on peanut butter and sourdough bread, and I became really thin, and I let my beard grow out, and I had this wild hair, and Carlos would call me the Creature, and he would tease me, and I never liked it. I never liked it. But then one day we were hanging out with Mike Picaro, who's the middle brother. He was the bass
Right.
player in Toto. And we were at Carlos's house. Me, Carlos, and Mike were listening to some music, hanging out and stuff. Because we used to actually hang out and listen to music before all this technological stuff drained all of our energy. And we're having a good time. And he goes, Creatchy. And I said, I like Creatchy. And Mike was the sweetest guy. He was just, oh, in fact, we called him Baby Boy, but he was just so sweet guy. And the whole Carl family, they're kind of like my adopted family. Their father, Joe, was a wonderful jazz drummer, wonderful bebop drummer that I got to play with a lot too. And so I liked Creatchy. And that day, I think it was the early 80s, I said, Mike, I like that. I'm going to call my company that. So from that moment on, when I did Creatchy Productions, and then I did Creech Tunes Music, and then when I did my first email, it was Creatchy, and my website was Creatchy, and my record label was Creatchy, and it was just a thing, you know. And then Jeff, the older brother, Jeff. This shows you the personalities. Jeff would be like, "Yo, Creech." So Jeff called me Creech. Mike called me Creechy. I got about a dozen nicknames.
I won't tell you any of mine. They're not quite as good as those. So you, sometimes I wonder this because I know music is a strong part of your life. If you were to, we're going to roll reverse. So now you have front row center seats for a concert. Who are you going to see? You can pick them individually. You can come up with a band. Who is it that you would love to sit back and go, I'm just going to listen?
Do they have to be alive?
No, they do not.
Okay. Well, how about John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and McCoy Tyner, and you can put Jaco, I don't know, put Ron Carter in there, Tony Williams. That's almost Miles Davis group,
Exactly. That is that one group.
except for
Uh,
Wayne. Put Wayne in there too. No, it's a hard question. It's a hard question because I like so many. I enjoy so many artists. I mean, I can
mhm.
really enjoy a lot. In fact, I just started the Max Roach documentary earlier today on PBS. I discovered this thing called American Masters. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's a gold mine.
Is it?
Somebody told me, I have a medical person that told me they saw a thing on Hazel Scott. I've never heard of Hazel Scott. It's amazing. I don't know. Have
She's
you heard of her?
a little woman, right? If I remember correctly, she's a small in stature.
Yeah, well, she was the the first, I believe she had the first TV show before Nat Cole.
Right.
She played two pianos. She played incredible stride. She sang. She was an actress, but she got in trouble standing up for rights in the 50s, and then
Hmm.
got in trouble with the McCarthy Commission. They kind of tried. The show's called The Disappearance of Her. They kind of erased her from history. I had never heard of her.
No.
She was mentored by Art Tatum on the piano,
Ooh.
Teddy Wilson and Fats Waller, and Billie Holiday mentored her for singing. Dizzy. I mean, she was married to Adam Clayton Powell for a while, the
Okay.
congressman from Harlem. But this woman, I'm just saying, this American Masters series is so informative. And I saw one on Roberta Flack that just blew my mind. I mean,
Okay.
the information that I did you know that Les McCann got her started?
It's been a while, but I no, I never. I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, well, it's all this is a lot of great information. That's one
Right.
good thing about this technology. So I started the one on Max Roach now, but I'm enjoying watching Max Roach. But I mean, I'm partial to Herbie. I'm partial to Miles, and I was a huge Coltrane fan. Although, George Benson told me the story about Coltrane. He said he would go see him at the Vanguard with Elvin Jones and that band
Hmm.
with McCoy and stuff. He said first set would be packed, couldn't move. They take the break, second set, it'd be like 8 people there. Can you imagine that for that
Where?
band?
Why?
Because he said the people got it was so emotional and so intense that after the set was over, they couldn't handle it. They had to go home. It was like,
Wow.
I'm wasted. They could,
Wow.
it was like second set.
It's funny. I have this story. I was a huge fan of David Sanborn. I actually
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
knew
it's
him.
my buddy, man.
So what happened was, um, he was in town at a wonderful place down in Akron, and I had had a bad day at work. I had worked all day, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just get in the house. I went and sat in the very last row. So what was behind me is a brick wall, is the end of
Wow.
the house. So
What
I'm
place?
just, pardon me?
What place in Akron?
I think it was the Civic Theater, I think.
Oh, a theater. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sitting back and I'm just kind of like taking in the music. And that's all I'm doing. I got my eyes closed and I'm just going along with the music and everything. And got lucky and got to go backstage and meet David, talk to David. He goes, Daryl, where were you? I said, dude, I was all the way in the back of the house, all the way in the back of the house. I said, I just wanted to listen to you. I didn't want any real interruptions. I just wanted to hear the music. He looked at me, cracked a smile, and goes, thanks. He
Mhm.
goes, because sometimes that's what you want to do at a concert when you're listening to live music. I just want to listen. I want to hear the nuances. I went to a Bose store one time and the guy comes over and says, let me play this loud for you. I go, I don't want to hear it loud. I don't. I want to hear the intricacy. Oh, never mind. I just wanted to,
Intricacies.
thank you, sir. And I just wanted to hear that stuff. And sometimes, obviously, live is different than pre-recorded. But for me, it was therapeutic. It was like, let me close my eyes, let me listen. It felt better afterwards. And he goes, can you just tell people that? I go, sure, not a problem. I'll tell people. I ain't got a problem with that. You,
You just validated my whole thing. That is why I spent my life in music, is because of what you just said. It's so healing. It's so good
yeah,
for the soul. It brings people together. It's there's no you don't get indigestion.
no,
You
no,
don't get you don't gain weight. It's you don't have a hangover. I mean, music is the magic. It's the spiritual sauce. You just nailed it.
it's funny, and you can't see the room I'm in. This is my office, but there's R&B and pop stuff to my left. In front of me, I have old Peaches crates. One, two, three, four. And they're filled. They're filled. I can't to slide them out. I got to take three out. And then over here is all my jazz stuff.
Yeah.
My problem is this. The wife just hates this. If I
Yeah.
come here and start playing, I don't put it back. I put it on the floor. And then the next thing you know, after I've listened to 112,000 pieces of music, oh, now I got to spend another half an hour or so putting everything back up. But for me, like it just I have this is going to deviate a bit. My favorite movie of all time is Blazing Saddles. Because when I need to laugh, I can put that on, and even though I've seen it 422 times,
Yeah.
can basically quote the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's just good for me. It makes you feel good. It takes you from this place to this place. But that's what I do.
We
All
see
right.
Baby's band playing in the desert,
So saw them last year. We have the Tri-C Jazz Fest here,
right?
and the Basie band played, and I didn't put two and two together. So the guy stands up and he's talking, yeah, we were in this movie, and I'm like, you're kidding. So that band, this is the band that was in the movie, and they played that song, and I'm like, I'm in heaven. I
Yeah.
am absolutely in heaven. Um,
I got
pretty
to tour with that drummer from Harold Jones.
okay,
When I was with Natalie Cole, he was a treat.
yeah,
Yeah, because he knew he was in the movie.
right.
He was the one of the best drummers of the Basie band. Like
Hmm.
Tony Williams was to Miles, and we were up Natalie Cole together. That guy knew how to set up the big band in an echelon beyond anybody. I mean, I
Yeah.
played with some great drummers, Harold Jones.
David, what do you have going on now? What can I look forward to other than the book, of course, because you're going to get me the book. I don't care what I got to do. You're going to get me the book.
Yeah, well, we got a new friendship now. Before I go there, as you mentioned Dave Samberg, you mentioned Michael McDonald. Those are two of my St. Louis homies. So just so
Okay,
you know,
right. Okay.
this is the St. Louis music vibe. It's a mix of jazz, R&B. St. Louis, a little bit of they used to call it barbecue district. It's a little bit
Hmm.
not as sophisticated. As New York. Like Art Farmer came to St. Louis to play once at the Jazz Club, and he didn't trust the St. Louis band. He brought guys from Chicago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
St. Louis, we had organ trios. But Ike and Tina came from St. Louis, and of course Donny Hathaway. People don't know Donny Hathaway's from St. Louis.
Right. Okay.
But St. Louis, you mentioned Sanborn and Mike McDonald. I have them on my record on the same song with Smokey Robinson too. If it's another cut, I'll tell you. So what do I have coming up? I got 1,000 things happening.
That's what I
So
figured.
we got playing more now. I'm playing more now than I ever have under my own name. So I'm, and as we talked about, it keeps me busy. Like the place I went last night to see Ron Carter is Catalina Jazz Club, it's LA's big premier jazz club.
Hmm.
I'm booked there in June. I'm doing a Father's Day show with my band. So like, I have the shows coming up. I'm playing kind of around what I like is I'm playing around different places in LA that I can drive home.
Hmm.
Really, really nice after years of being in the suitcase and in the bus and all that stuff. So I've got a lot of shows. I got week from tonight, I'm at the Baked Potato. Then in April, I'm at Vibrato, which is Herb Alpert's club. It's a gorgeous club. Then I'm going to Miami. I'm playing at the Faena Hotel in Miami. They booked me to play in their jazz concert series. Tony's going with me. Pulizzi is on that gig.
Okay.
Then that's also in April. Then May, I'm going to New York. I'm playing the Bitter End. We're doing a live recording. Randy Brecker will be on trumpet and taking a bunch of guys from LA, mixed LA and New York guys. And then June, I'll be at Catalina Jazz Club here. So um, I booked a solo concert in Detroit in uh, November 1st, playing Nashville again in October. And I'm recording all the time. I've got songs. I got people working on songs in New York. I got another guy mixing a song in Pasadena. It's like I just record music. Like I say, I write it, I record it, I perform it.
Nice. Uh, I'm sure people are sitting out there going, "We need to follow this guy." What's your social media presence?
Big. I have all that stuff. If you go to davidgarfield.com, there's a link right there to every social thing,
Hmm.
Facebook, uh, all those things. And we also have a YouTube channel, David Garfield Official, and we're putting up lots of stuff. Like I put up clips from the gigs there. I have vintage things, like I got me playing with Freddie Hubbard, me playing with George, all kinds of cool stuff up there. And documentaries. I have some cool stuff. Like you talk about Let's Stay Together. I have a whole documentary up there called The Making of Let's Stay Together.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about, I don't know if it's 15, 20 minutes long, because that was a big project. That song we had tracked in LA, then we went to Nashville to put Michael McDonald on it, and we came back to LA and put the background vocals on it. But I don't know if you're aware of who all is on that song. Joe Sample's playing the Rhodes,
Yeah, I saw that.
and Nathan is playing bass, and we had Michael McDonald as the primary singer, but we also had Don Henley, Richard Marks, David Pack,
I
all
think I
that.
saw that in the video in the four of them standing behind the microphone.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Oh, so you saw the video?
I saw that, and when I looked up, I'm like, "Who's that guy?" And then they changed positions, and I'm like, "It's Don Henley. That's Richard Marks."
Yeah.
We all got things to do. So I'm going to end it there because I do reserve the right to call you back and talk more about this, especially when
Anytime.
the book comes out. David,
You
I
want to
great.
you want to know about how the outside the box? You asked about it.
Right, yes.
The reason and this is outside the box, OTB. That's our logo. The thing about, or I should,
Nice.
the
Okay.
thing about outside the box is that this is part of why I've been slow to become well known, is I refused to just jump into smooth jazz or just jump into fusion. I always played music for the people.
Right.
And fusion music, if you're just playing fusion, you're going to have guitar players and drummers. And we call the women that come to the show hostages. They're a couple of the guitar players have girlfriends. And they're sitting there, like, what the hell are these guys doing? And then, the thing about it is, I always, and if you come to one of my shows, I'll play a Duke Ellington song in a Latin style. Then I'll play a Beatles song in a Weather Report style. Then I'll do
Wow.
an original song. And it all ties together because to me, it makes it a more interesting concert.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
same thing over and over and over. And a lot of my guys are in the smooth jazz world. A lot of my buddies have, I mean, we were doing this before they had that. And
Right.
I watched that develop. And it's like, no, I like to keep it real. and varied. So outside the box means it's outside the limits. Yeah.
Right. I get it. All right, sir. I greatly appreciate it. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And like I said, I reserve the right to call you back and continue this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been,
Are we done?
huh?
Or are we?
I,
Are we already done?
yeah, I try to keep it to 30 to 40 minutes because of the, will make fans
Sure.
unhappy. It's the attention span of people, but I can do multiple shows. So
Yeah.
that's the plus about it. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I am Daryl Scott. Our guest has been Mr. David Garfield. You can follow him on all the platforms out there to find out what he's doing, what music is next, where he's come from, and we're going to wait for this book to come out. That is the main thing. You're going to let us know when that book comes out, and we'll
It's
put it
gonna
out
be.
on we'll put it out there on our social media.
Yeah.
If you have questions for me, you can get a hold of me at jazzflyte@gmail.com. If you want to subscribe to this show, once the show ends, there's a button to subscribe. I appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you just watch the show. We got more stuff coming. And I'm not going to get into everybody. There's a couple of people I'm chasing down. David's going to give me the name of one of them, and we'll see what we can do. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Daryl Scott.